Hello, just before we start today's show, my guest today mentions weight a couple of times, sizes of her body changing from X to X, and a few weight loss products. So if that's going to be triggering for you, feel free to skip this episode and come back to the next one.
Money. Welcome to the FeustelFIT podcast with your host, Nicola Feustel. Straight talking, body positive coach and personal trainer. Nicola brings you your weekly guide to finding real health and fitness and to live the life you deserve.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to the FeustelFIT Health and Fitness Show. I am your host, Nicola Feustel, and today my special guest is called Jess Ryder. So I've been looking at Jess Ryder's posts for a while now. She's a positive person. She helps people with feeling more positive. She inspires people to feel good in their bodies. She is also a global body image movement global ambassador, as am I, and our role is to promote the Embrace movie and body positivity. And Jess just goes above and beyond what you need to be doing, and she's just so passionate about it. And so I really wanted to get her on the show and find out why she is so passionate about it, what her story is, and tell us a bit more about the work she's doing. Now, I always enjoy all of my interviews, and I find that I benefit from the people's experience because we've all suffered or recovered or are going through different things at different times, and we're all on different journeys and experience things in different ways. And so I really love listening to other people and finding out what their experience is and learning something for myself and being a platform that can put the words out there and other people can listen and then hopefully get the benefit of it as well. Many of you know I talk about mental health a lot, and one thing that I've always suffered with is anxiety. And one of those things is social anxiety and public speaking, believe it or not. So obviously I do podcasts, I do live radio show, and I am in front of groups of people every day teaching fitness. But when I teach fitness, I'm standing there with a hat on. I wear my professional hat. I know what I have to say. I know when I need to say it. And I am comfortable that I am able to come out and be myself more and say other things and do other stuff and just make the class my own, because I've been doing it for a while now. But the very first time I did those classes, I was very, very nervous, worried about what everyone was thinking. Everybody's looking at me. And it's a vulnerable place to be, standing up in front of people. And even though through the radio I'm sitting there in a box mainly by myself, talking to the world, pretending nobody's listening, I still feel like I'm in a vulnerable position because I'm putting my words out there, my opinions, my thoughts, my beliefs, and I could be open to attack at any time. So it does make me a little bit nervous every week, but I like to get out of my comfort zone, and eventually it will become my comfort zone, and then I'll look for something else. And I have to say, having not done a podcast for a few weeks, I wasn't inspired to speak to anybody, didn't have any inspiring questions, and I just generally felt not confident speaking to people over Skype for some reason. I just wasn't inspired to do it, and so I thought, don't do it. There's no pressure. I don't do this for a job. I do this for fun. I do it because I like getting out of my comfort zone, but I don't have to do that all the time. If I want to feel comfortable and not speak to anybody for a few weeks, then that's fine. I will do that. And Jess was the perfect guest to have on today, and I felt really comfortable talking to her, and our conversation just flowed, especially at the end, which you won't hear because it wasn't recorded, but I just really enjoyed speaking to her. And she's mentioned that she enjoys my podcast, which is one of those things where you always have those self-doubt moments, and I always think, like I do with the radio, I'm putting all this information out there but no one's really listening to it. I'm tricking myself really, or thinking that I'm not good enough and no one will want to listen to me. I do the same thing with my podcast, and I think, well, at the end of the day, it's not a job. I do it because I want to. I don't make any money from it, and in fact I probably spend money on it, on my headset and time and everything else, but it's something that I enjoy and I want to do. So it was really nice even just hearing from Jess that she enjoyed my podcasts and she is listening to them all. So thank you, Jess. And without further ado, here she is.
So my name is Jess Ryder, and I have become known as a super host or a super fan of the Australian documentary Embrace, and I support the body image movement, and I've recently become a global ambassador as well to support spreading the message of Embrace.
And so where do you live in the world?
Okay, so I live in a town called Toowoomba, which is in Queensland in Australia. And Toowoomba is located 145 kilometres west of Brisbane. So we're inland, sort of heading up into the ranges a bit.
Mm-hmm. What's life like over there?
Toowoomba's like a big country town. It's pretty chilled, pretty relaxed. Years ago, I grew up here, and years ago, everyone always said, "Oh, Toowoomba sucks. You know, it's boring. There's nothing to do." I'm a very worldly person, and I've lived in some of the biggest cities in the world, but Toowoomba has always brought me back. So as an adult, I always say Toowoomba sucks. It sucks you back in.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got a lot of developments and evolutions happening here in Toowoomba, so it's becoming quite an amazing city now.
So what's life like in Toowoomba in terms of like the media, and how do people feel about their bodies?
Toowoomba has a really big body image issue in the community. Every second corner seems to be a new gym or a boot camp popping up, and we're severely saturated with products like Isogenics and Herbalife, and I'm not sure if you guys have it over there, but it's called It Works, which is a crazy rap thing, and everyone is wanting to get onto clean eating, paleo, cleanses. We really are quite a body conscious community,
So
and
pretty much the same as here then.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. It's really quite crazy, and it's quite sad that people are so focused on it rather than getting out and enjoying life. Their thoughts and space in their mind is taken up constantly thinking about what they're going to eat or how they look, and being affected by the media as well. So that's why it was so important to me to bring Embrace.
So what was your experience like growing up in that area, and how did you first feel about your body as you were growing up? When did you first notice that you felt negative?
I think I was actually probably fairly lucky growing up. I wasn't too self-conscious. I don't really remember being too conscious about my body image probably till I started to hit about 15 or 16. I was thinking the other day, I remember one day I thought I would try taking a container of lettuce for lunch, but my hunger pains took over me too much, and I never did that again. But it wasn't probably until my late 20s was when my body image issues really hit, and when I really sort of grew up and started to enter the professional world and being conscious of what people saw and what I looked like when I went to work, versus prior to that I did school, I was an exchange student, and then I was a backpacker, so it was more about how much you could drink rather than worrying about how you looked at the time. So,
and what do you do for a living? What do you do
at the moment, I work for a construction company. We're quite a big company across Queensland, so we build aged care facilities and schools. But that's just to pay my mortgage.
Mm-hmm. So the job that you do doesn't affect you in your body image or anything like that?
No, not really. I'm very much tied to a desk all day. I work with a lot of guys, so we really don't have, I suppose, what you would experience if it was a very female-dominated industry, worrying about how I looked, what I ate, or what designer label I was fitting into. I'm quite lucky in the fact that I quite comfortably just wear trousers and a t-shirt to work. It's not who's looking the best and who's looking the slimmest. But that's not to say, sitting down all day and munching away at, say, the odd biscuit or a chocolate bar, or having had too much for lunch, you do still have those frumpy days and feel uncomfortable in your skin.
So what brought you to Embrace?
Embrace found me. Back in May last year, this random film clip popped up on my newsfeed on Facebook, and I clicked on it and watched it, and I sat on my bed and I had tears streaming down my face because here was a woman making a movie and putting a voice to everything that I had thought about myself but had never been brave enough to actually say out loud. And I thought, well, what is this movie and how can I see it? So I Googled it, and it turned out that it was premiering at the Sydney Film Festival in June last year. And when I looked at the date, I couldn't believe it. I was already planning a long weekend to go to Sydney that weekend, and I was going to be able to have that possibility to see the film. So we bought tickets and went along, and I didn't really do a lot of reading or research about Tara and Brumfit or Embrace. I just went along knowing that I needed to see this film. And the film started, and within the first 30 seconds, my eyes just welled up. I just couldn't believe how amazing this message was that this film was sharing, and how much I could relate to it. And suddenly I realised that I wasn't alone, that there were so many other people out there that actually felt and thought the same way about their bodies that I did. And I held off those tears right until the last probably 30 seconds of the film when they just flooded. And it was at that moment after the credits rolled, I turned to my friends and I said, I just have to get this film to Toowoomba. I have to get it to the people in our community because it's such an amazing message.
Mm-hmm. So are you a mum as
that's
well?
That's how I discovered it. Sorry?
Are you a mum as well?
No, I'm actually don't have children, so I don't have that pressures of being an example to my children of how I look and feel, but I still take on the responsibility, and I'm really conscious now, having discovered Embrace, of thinking more carefully about what I say to people, mm-hmm. and how I greet people, instead of making comments about how they look, which is how we're ultimately brought up, listening to our parents when they greet someone and say, oh, you look good, or you've lost weight. Whereas I'm very conscious not to say that now, and I'm conscious about presenting an example to other people so that we don't focus on how we look when we see our friends and family that we haven't seen for a long time, but focus on how we feel and how they're feeling.
Mm-hmm. So if you could take us back to a day before you watched the Embrace movie, and like that moment where Taryn is standing in the mirror facing her demons, not wanting to go out with her husband because she hates her body, what kind of things would you say to yourself? How did you feel?
For me, I always felt I'm quite a bigger framed person to begin with. So, you know, I'm just short of 6 foot tall, and I'm quite broad. So whenever I looked at myself, all I ever longed was to be a petite girl, someone that was small. I always longed to have skinnier thighs, and I remember even back when I was 15, I remember once, before the term was even invented, wanted to have a thigh gap. I wanted to be able to stand and not have my legs touch each other when my feet were together. And all I wanted to be was just beautiful. I didn't think that I was pretty or attractive. I've got quite curly hair, so I grew up always being teased about having frizzy hair. And I just wanted to have the perfect body that we see in the magazines. I did not think I was beautiful. Mm-hmm. And that was how I often thought about myself before Embrace.
What was your family like life like though? Like, how did your parents bring you up to feel about the way that you looked?
My mother, I do always very consciously remember every morning or every week seeing her step on the scale, and I always remember her. She was a beautician, so she always focused on putting her face on, always making sure that her makeup was immaculate and her hair was immaculate to draw the attention upwards, because she herself didn't like her thighs or her wobbly bottom, or her flabby tummy. And so I do always remember being brought up also with having always the diet products in our house, always having diet yogurt, diet Coke, Equal or NutraSweet, which are artificial sweeteners. It was never full fat. It was always margarines or no salt. So I always thought that the full fat foods and that were always bad for you, and that they weren't the right things to eat. So when they were ever presented as an opportunity, that was exciting. Mm-hmm. I do also remember when my younger sister, where she's 18 months younger than me, when I was 12 and she would have been about 10, she was struggling with her weight, and I remember my mother taking her off to Weight Watchers, and as a result the whole family followed the Weight Watchers program through support, and because if one person was doing it and Mum was the one that ran the household and ran the food and the groceries, so we all followed the program. Mm-hmm. So from a very early age, dieting was very much in our family.
So what was your relationship with food and dieting after that point?
When my sister was at Weight Watchers, I remember not feeling fat or anything like that. And when it came to the measuring of foods and that sort of thing, I remember always saying, no, just give me more. I want more. I don't want to be restricted to my teaspoon of peanut butter or whatever it was. But as I got older, I particularly when I hit my 20s, I became very conscious that I was a big eater. I always remember at the dinner table, I would always be served almost probably the same amount of food on my dinner plate as what my father would be served, and always remember hearing my mother or my father saying, oh, Jessica, you eat as much as your father does. You're got legs like tree trunks. And I became very conscious in my 20s of how much I ate, or portion sizes, I think, when I started to be more conscious of people outside of the family unit and how much they ate. I guess even today I still sometimes question whether my servings are normal or not. But I guess that also comes from the brainwashing of having been a calorie counter or a Weight Watchers member as well.
Yeah, and also what society tells us is a portion. And you can't really have somebody tell you how hungry you are today compared to tomorrow, compared to yesterday.
Yes, absolutely right. We're always told, a serving of protein is 150 grams, or, you need to have 3 serves of vegetables and, 2 serves of fruit. And we're always conscious of the portions and that sort of thing, rather than more learning to listen to what our bodies want and, looking at that portion and eating it and being mindful of our eating and going, well, no, I don't need to eat my full portion or my full serving. I don't need it. My body is saying it's full. And I guess also being brought up in a family where it was always you have to eat everything on your plate is another one. So even when your body is starting to have those signals go to your mind to say, hey, I'm full, stop eating, being told that you have to eat all your food or you can't leave the table is also another conditioning that happens as we grow up.
It's crazy, all of the things that happen when we're so young, you don't even realise the impact that it has on you as an adult.
Oh, absolutely. It's even if you reflect back to when you watch a mother feeding a toddler and after a couple of mouthfuls and the toddler starts pushing the spoon away. And as a parent would, or a mother would be saying, well, no, you need to finish this dish, you need to eat it all. But the toddler is pushing the food away, not to be obnoxious or a pain, but because obviously they're full and they don't need any more food.
Yeah.
And they can't communicate that.
So do you think your upbringing was one of the first steps to leading you to feel negative about your body?
I don't know the actual pinpoint in time of when I started to feel negative about my body. I really think it probably happened very much when I had returned home. I lived in the UK from 2003 to 2006. And the typical thing when you're in the UK, Australians always get told that we get the Heathrow injection. So you land in the UK and we all drink too much beer and we eat too much, and suddenly we all put on weight before we go home. And I remember that I came home and I saw my sister for the first time in a long time. And my sister became very obese, probably in her 20s. And when I saw her when I came home, she had dropped a significant amount of weight. And it was at that point in time, I think, that I really felt self-conscious about myself, because I had always been the taller, slightly thinner one than her. And suddenly she was having these amazing results and looking fantastic. And I was struggling with the weight I'd put on living in England. And that's when I suddenly realised I wanted to make a change in my body. And I asked her what she was doing, because that's what we always do. We always look at someone, see what fantastic results they're getting, and we want to know what they're doing, and we want to replicate it and achieve the fantastic results as well. So when I talked to her about it, and that's when I realised that I wasn't happy in my body at the time. And so I probably would have been about 25 by then. And the thing that my sister was doing was a meal replacement, a product called Tony Ferguson, which was sold through a pharmacy, very similar to like a Boots.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, a shake for breakfast, a shake for lunch, a little bit of salad, and some protein and salad or vegetables for dinner. So a very, very strict regime. And I went on board with it and started following it.
So what happened to you when you were on the diet?
Well, I had significant results. I went from probably a size 16 Australia size and dropped right down to a size 10. So weight-wise, I went from probably close to 88 kilos down to 69 kilos. But what happened in that process was that I went on the program for longer than what really was recommended, and I almost became addicted to it.
Mm-hmm.
I was on it for, I think it was about 18 months, and I was very strict. At the time, I was working in a call centre, so there was always food around, but I always said no. But it was like a dirty little secret that I had, because I was always very careful not to let people see me having the shakes at work, or not to tell people that that's what I was taking. And what happened was it really started to affect my personality, and I became a very dark person, and I was very focused on staying strict to this regime. But at the same time, my parents started to intervene and said, look, you need to stop these shakes. You become an unpleasant person to be around. I was just so negative. But I was so focused on losing all this weight, and I guess in my head, being skinny equaled being pretty. And of course, this was being fed by the fact that people in the office were making comments on my weight loss, or saying how slim I was looking. And of course, I was I couldn't afford to go buy new clothes, so I was taking the clothes to the tailor and having things altered and taken in so that I could keep wearing them. And ultimately, what happened was that I couldn't get off the shakes. I was scared to start eating properly again because I was scared that if I didn't take them, I would start to put the weight back on. And that was a real mess in my mind. And ultimately, I ended up, my father ended up taking me to the doctors, and the doctor was very much matter of fact and straight down the line with me. And I guess maybe it was the fact that someone outside of my family sort of snapped me out of it. It was a very quick step from it. But what I did was I stepped from taking these meal replacement shakes and I moved across to Weight Watchers because I wanted to learn how to eat, in my head, how to eat properly. And, you know, Weight Watchers is all about portion control. Weight Watchers is about eating anything and everything that you like, but within moderation. And I was a successful Weight Watcher for about 3 years. But of course, as whatever everything happens is life takes over and you don't follow a program properly and the weight will creep back on.
Did you have any like side effects from being so restrictive with food? Did you feel like, with me, my mind was consumed with food, I was dreaming about food, and I started to really have bad side effects and became less of a person? Like, what sort of things happened to you? What was it that made you stop or like fall off the wagon, if you like?
With the when I was on the meal replacement product, it was my personality, and I was so consumed and so obsessed with these shakes and you know, not enjoying life. I would say no to invitations, or if I went somewhere, I would have my shake before I went, and if it was the restaurant we went to, I would order a salad because it meant that I was still on the program and nobody knew. So I don't really remember whether I was experiencing any side effects or not at the time, but it was the fact that my personality was changing and my attitude towards life and the way I conducted myself when I would go home to see family, that it was my family that was seeing the changes in me. For me, I felt fine. I thought I was, had the energy. I thought I was invincible. I was still going to the gym. I was socialising and having fun with people, and yet nobody knew what I was really doing behind closed doors. It's amazing the different recipes you can make up with a little sachet of powder and a bit of water, and make pancakes and muffins.
So with the gym, what was your relationship with exercise like at the time?
I think my relationship with exercise at that point in time was fairly moderate. I wasn't where some people would eat something and then out of guilt then go and have to exercise for an hour or 2 hours to burn it off. I wasn't that concerned in that regard because obviously the meal replacement shakes and eating salads and that sort of helped to control it. So I would, still just do my average hour of exercise a day. Whereas on the other extreme end, only just probably 2 years ago was when exercise was my obsession over food. And this is when I got sucked into and got on the clean eating bandwagon and the paleo bandwagon and the Whole30 program. And it was at that point in time that I would go to the gym, and by this time I had switched from gyms with just your stationary equipment to doing boot camps and what it gets called functional fitness over here, using kettlebells and sandbags. And I would go to the gym and I would be doing training sessions sometimes up to 3 times a day, 6 days a week. I would do 2 sessions in the morning before work. I would be going straight after work. The importance of this training was so much so that I was actually sometimes getting up at 3:30 in the morning, going into the office to do a couple of hours work, then going to the gym to do 2 training sessions, then go home, have a shower, go to a full day of work, and then straight after work I would be back at the gym for another session. So it became this fixation that if I was clean eating, that was fine, my food was good, but now it was about building my body and losing the weight that way and finding my strength. I wasn't necessarily focused on trying to enter a bodybuilding competition or anything like that, but at the time, my Facebook feeds and my Instagram feeds were full of Fitspiration photos, and all these beautiful bodies were clean eating and working out and telling me that that's all it took and I would get those results. But
and did
as
you
a
ever
result,
get to your perfect body?
Sorry?
Did you ever get to what you felt was a perfect body?
No, I never did. When I was on the meal replacement shakes, I guess I got to what I called my ideal weight, and I felt skinny and slim because I could fit into a size 10 in a name brand clothing store. But I wasn't strong, and I didn't have the 6-pack or anything like that. And then if you look at when I was obsessed with my working out 3 times a day, my body actually didn't like it because I did that for about 6 months and nothing changed. Yes, I gained some strength and muscle in my arms, but I didn't gain a 6-pack. I didn't lose the weight around my legs and my backside. I really think because I was flogging my body so much, my body went, no, we don't want you to do this. We're going to hold on to all of this to protect you. And looking back now, I think that's what my body was doing, was going into protection mode. Because ultimately, since I've stopped all of that and changed to just doing gentle exercise, nothing has changed. My body is still happy.
So where probably you would have thought that doing less, you'd probably gain a ton of weight, you haven't.
Exactly right. And I think these days what I do is I try to listen to my body and think, what am I enjoying and what am I going to get out of it? It's not much of a life to be getting up at 3:30 in the morning to do some office work before you go to the gym just because you don't want to miss a gym session.
Yeah.
I would feel bad if I didn't do that. Whereas, for example, this week we've had an extreme cold snap come through Queensland, and it's just too cold to go outside, and I've been quite busy with work and personal things. So unfortunately, I've only had one chance to work out this week, and that was to go to a dance class. But I'm okay with that, and I'm not beating myself up about it like I would have in the past.
So from the past till now, you've had a big transition, and obviously Embrace was somewhere in the middle. Can you talk us through how you actually changed from feeling so negative about your body and doing all of the diets and trying to get this perfect body to then being more relaxed and being happy and probably healthier in the body that you're in now?
I'm a work in progress, and so I still have my up and down days, and I guess the most liberating thing that Embrace taught me and has helped me to do is at this point in time I have thrown away the diet book. Up until October last year, I was still counting calories, and my mind and my thoughts were 90% of the time consumed with how much I could eat, what I could eat, and what size portion I could have, and to a point where I would plan out my meals in my calorie counter for the week. And if heaven forbid a birthday cake turned up at the office, I wasn't going to deny myself that cake, but I would be straight onto my calorie counter working out what I needed to suddenly drop out of my other meals for the rest of the day so that I could create the space for that piece of cake. So it might be cutting off half a potato and a slice of bread to free up those calories. So I was always consumed with thinking about what I could eat and what was going to be available at my next meal. And then always looking for recipes that always fitted within the calorie count for the week. But since I've discovered Embrace, and as well as having seen the movie, I've also since read the book, is that I really think the most valuable piece of information from it is what are we going to think about when we're taking our last few breaths of our life at the end of our life? Are we going to be upset and disappointed with ourselves that we didn't enjoy our food, enjoy our life, and have that piece of chocolate cake? Or are we going to praise ourselves and think, thank goodness I didn't do that, all that hard work and restriction has led to nothing. I really think that's a big thing for me, is learning to remember to enjoy life. And as a result of Embrace, I now consciously try to think and look at my body as to what it can do. So prior to Embrace, as I've mentioned before, is I've always struggled with my legs. I remember once getting a nasty letter at school from a girl calling me thunder thighs. And I've got hips and thighs the size 16, while I've got a waist that's a size 10, size 12. So to buy pants was really hard. But through Embrace, I've stopped focusing on that part of my body and been upset with the size of it, and instead been really focusing on what my legs can do. And when I reflect on what my legs can do, they've allowed me to go trek the 10 tallest peaks of Australia in ankle-deep snow in 2 days, which is 56 kilometres. And it's also allowed me to enter a boxing ring and dance around the ring in a boxing competition.
Oh, wow.
And they allow me to get out and walk my dog on the weekend. So now that I've nailed that, and I learned this technique from Tara and Brumfit to really just focus on what they can do, not what they can't do. It's amazing that in the last 10 months how much I've changed my attitude towards my legs. Mm-hmm. But as I said, I'm a work in progress. So now I'm working on and focusing on my arms and my stomach, because I'm struggling with them at the moment, and so I'm trying to focus and learn to remember what they can do, not what they can't do and what they don't look like.
Because
and
you also, you got a tattoo, didn't you, on your legs?
Yes, I did. I was a clean skin. I had no tattoos, and then in December last year, I decided I was feeling quite good about my legs, and I went and had Embrace tattooed on the curvy, bumpy, soft, wobbly spot on the side of my leg, because when I go shopping for pants and I pull them up and they get stuck at that spot, I'm not going to curse them, but I will look at my tattoo and remember to embrace them for what they can do. So it's really quite a beautiful reminder to have, and I think that was probably the big turning point for me, was when I got that. It was like, yeah, my legs are pretty cool.
And how empowering was it for you meeting Taryn Brumfit?
Oh my gosh, meeting Taryn was just, I was starstruck. I had the breath taken out of me, and all my questions, all my comments and everything I wanted to tell her completely went out of my mind. And all I could do was just smile and say hello and then burst into tears, because I had been living and breathing Embrace unexpectedly every day since I saw it in June last year, because I posted it multiple times. So every morning and every night I was promoting Embrace to people and telling people about Embrace and trying to get people to buy tickets to it. So to ultimately see the lady that I'd seen 12 times on the cinema screen, I was just in awe of her, and I just couldn't believe what a beautiful person she is and how amazing she is in person.
Talking about all of the time and effort that you've spent on promoting Embrace and all of the amazing screenings that you've had, do you feel like in a way it's been part of the healing process, getting rid of all of the dieting and all of that mental space that was taken up with calorie counting and worrying about your body image, to then pushing that out and bringing in all the positive and focusing on pushing the Embrace movie and helping other people?
Most definitely. I think if I had discovered Embrace back when it was been a crowd-funded film and was still just on the drawing board, I don't know whether it would have had the impact that it's had for me when I discovered it, when it was finished and ready to go live. And it really has been amazing, because every waking moment, Embrace continues my thoughts and my feelings and my considerations of what I'm going to do for the day. Rather than worrying about my calorie counting and that, I'm thinking, how am I going to get this beautiful message to other people? And it really has been such a warm feeling to be able to share this film with other people, watch their reaction and share their emotions, and then watch them walk away standing taller. And the biggest thing I tell anyone about Embrace is that the more you watch it, the new little pieces of information that you pick up each time are going to help you move forward on your journey. Because when you watch a film at different times in your life, or when you're in a different headspace, you pick up something different that's going to help you conquer that issue that you're having at the time. And there's so many amazing nuggets of gold of information in Embrace that even just a couple of weeks ago, I just watched it again, and there was something in the film that stood out to me more than it did previously, and I went, yes, that's what I needed to hear at this point in time to help me keep going.
What was it?
And that's what I said. To be honest, I think it was during when she was talking to Hanan, who's the bearded dame from the UK. Hanan talks about not letting what people say about you put you down and stop you doing what you want to do. And I think at that time I'd struggled with a little bit of, in Australia we have a bit of tall poppy syndrome, and quite often people will try to cut you down. And I'd had someone that sort of told me, you don't need to keep doing this, no one really cares. And hearing Hanan talk in that screening was the piece of information that reminded me not to give up. Mm-hmm. And that one person, their opinion is their opinion, and that's fine. But I love what I'm doing to support Embrace and to support the body image movement. Not only because it's helping me, but it's helping to get it to so many other people that need it. And that was that little nugget of gold that I needed at that point in time.
And tell us about your role as an ambassador.
As an ambassador?
Yeah, for the body image movement.
Yes. So as part of being a global ambassador, the most beautiful part of it is that we're committed to supporting and sharing the message of Embrace. And as a result of becoming a part of that, I created a Facebook page which surprisingly just grew arms and legs by itself and became its own little monster. And I've ended up with over 1,300 people following my posts on Facebook. And what I've learned through my journey is that sharing inspiration with other people and motivating other people on their journey not only makes you feel good, but helps them to go out and help other people feel good. And so I love being connected as a global ambassador, because it gives me that affiliation to something bigger than just me. And it makes you feel like you're actually making a difference in the world. And, you know, they say one person can make a difference, but together we can make a huge difference. And I just love the support that I can get from other ambassadors, and being able to talk to them and get advice, and then be able to share that advice with other people in my community, and people that are following me from across the world. So it's a really beautiful experience being part of something so amazing.
And tell us about all of the videos that you've been making to help people feel more positive.
Oh, the semicolon Sunday.
Yeah.
Ah, yes. So, for me, I discovered a little symbol of the semicolon, where when you look at what a semicolon means in the English language, a semicolon is a pause in a sentence where the author could have chose to stop the sentence, but they decided to keep going. And in the tattoo world, and also just in general, the semicolons become a symbol of hope and inspiration that your journey is not over. So I really grasped that. And then I discovered a symbol where it actually had 3 semicolons in a triangle. And this semicolon indicated a new start and fresh beginning for a new year. And that really, really resonated with me, because that's where I am. I'm now starting the new step in my journey, and there's a lot of hope with it. And I started thinking about how live videos were really taking off on Facebook, and what could I do to contribute to people's lives based on my own journey and my own experience. And that's when I suddenly came up with the idea to do a live video every Sunday and incorporate 3 semicolons as 3 little points or tips or ideas from my life. And I use it as a way of letting people know that I want to inspire them by my journey and motivate them to take action on their journey. And I also want to connect them with people so that they can achieve what they want. And by connect, it can be with a professional, whether it's a psychologist or a counsellor or a dance group or a PT, or it's about just getting them to connect with people in their lives, whether it's their neighbours, their friends and their family, but also with strangers. I love connecting with strangers and doing kind things to strangers out of the blue, which helps to make you feel good. So I just do a little video, and it usually only goes for about 5 minutes on a Sunday night, Australian time, and it's recorded and then posted on the Facebook page for people to watch at a later time. And it's just whatever's triggered my thoughts through the week, and about using that little bit of an insight to hopefully give people a little nugget of gold of information to inspire them to start their next week as it approaches.
So what kind of topics have you come up with?
Well, I've covered things from learning to remember to put your phone down and be present and participate in life, rather than us always being consumed on our phones and always worrying about what other people are doing and always looking at our experiences through our phones. So we're always got our phones out taking photos or small videos and wanting to post them on Facebook, put them on Instagram and share them with everyone that's not there. But what happens is that we miss out on being present and enjoying that experience. So I've suggested to people to try taking 1 or 2 photos and then just putting your phone away and just be in the moment. And other topics I've covered is I have a little saying that I came up at, a little acronym, which I use, which is called Bet on Yourself. And the BET stands for Believe, Empower, Trust. So I've had this acronym for a little while in my life about learning to believe in myself when I have ideas or thoughts or passions, and know that I can empower myself from within to do anything I want. But we also have to learn to trust ourselves, that we're making the right choice and the right decision at that point in time. It's the best thing for our life. So it's not about second guessing ourselves, but it's about believing ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the other one, the most recent one I did was I had all of a sudden I lost a lot of followers on my Facebook page for one reason or another. And I sort of talked about how we're also consumed with please like me. We can all see who likes us, how many friends we've got on Facebook and how many followers, and we can see when those numbers drop. And it's such a detrimental thing because all we want to be naturally in as a human is to be liked, that we start questioning why doesn't that person like me? So I talked about how you could walk into a room of 100 people and 99 people will love you and think you're fantastic, but there could be one person that doesn't like you. And who are we going to focus on in that situation? The one person that doesn't like you. And we'll question, what can we do to change their thoughts? What can we do to change their opinion of us? But ultimately, whether they like us or not is their choice. And it's not up to us to change their choice, whether they like us or not. So it's about focusing on liking ourselves and focusing on those that do like us rather than those that don't. So I just take little tidbits that I pick up from podcasts or books that I'm reading and hopefully pass on something inspirational to others.
Which is great. And I was going to say, because obviously doing all of this output and you're always helping other people, when do you take time for yourself and what do you do for self-care?
Oh, I'm a Netflix and chill kind of girl. I love a good binge watch of a bit of Netflix and sitting on the sofa and I like to lock myself away in my house and be a little hermit for a day or two. But at the same time, I have a couple of little dogs and I absolutely love getting out and walking them and taking them down to the park and spending time with them. I just like to catch up with my friends or to read and a lot of the time I love just being on Facebook and channeling my ideas and passion to share with other people or finding inspiration. But I don't have a huge routine at the moment. I'm still working on my self-care and my own self-compassion, but I'm learning. And the key to learning is also about listening to our body and listening to what it's trying to tell us. And I'm getting better at that.
So because I think I've been on my journey probably about the same as you. It feels like a year that I've focused so much attention on being body positive. And in a way, as I asked you earlier about removing the negative stuff, you almost have to fill all that extra space in your head because it can feel a little bit like there's nothing there. And who am I if I'm not trying to get a perfect body, or if I'm not on a diet and working towards something? You can feel a little bit lost. So it's nice to have all that positive stuff to put in there and focus on. So obviously,
absolutely,
with things going up and down, and you're putting out all this positive stuff, what happens when you're on a down? How do you bring yourself back up?
How do I bring myself back up? I think the biggest thing when I'm down is I do know that moving my body does help. As cliche as it sounds, and we all hear it all the time, that you move your body and you'll feel good. So, I do try to get on the treadmill or get out and walk the dogs. But I also do other things, like I'll draw a bath and put some beautiful aromatherapy oils in it, or if I don't have time to soak in the bath, I'll use the oils in the shower and get those positive smells going. And I also I will jump on Facebook, and I use Facebook because there is so much positive stuff out there, and that's what we have to make sure we do, is get rid of the negative stuff that feeds those negative thoughts. But if you find the positive stuff and you can learn from other people, that's a really good thing to do. I've been quite lucky. I haven't been in too many funks since I discovered Embrace, but I definitely know that one thing I love to do is I will just put on Embrace while I'm sitting at the computer and have it play in the background and get that inspiration happening, and
You're
it's
lucky that
about
you're able
surrounding
to
myself
have
with
that.
positive things.
I think in the UK we're not able to buy them till maybe December time, which is a shame because
Oh no!
I've seen it twice,
Oh,
and that I feel like I need to watch it again.
oh! As soon as it gets out, Nicola, you just need to watch it again, because I say to people is when you first see it, you get this rush of emotion, and everything just that you've held inside of you suddenly bubbles up, and you're like, oh my gosh, and you're wrestling with those emotions, so that then the second time you see it is when you know what to expect, but then you can focus on the content and the information and the message of those that are talking in the film, and it's just amazing. And I mean, the thing is, I guess I could almost say that I became so obsessed with Embrace when it was released on DVD in Australia. I got this crazy harebrained idea, and I ended up ringing Sony, who were distributing it, and I purchased 150 copies of the DVD.
Wow.
But the cool part was that I had 150 people lined up ready to buy those copies. But what's happened since then is I've purchased another 300 copies, and I've only got 100 left. So
Wow.
Embrace is just still going, and it will keep going. And everyone that sees it says, I need to get a copy of that for this person and for that person. And I've had people buying, 2 or 3 copies at a time to send them to family members. I even had one lady that got in and said, I'd like 10 copies. That's my Christmas shopping done for the year. And that was in January.
Just hopefully the movie has the impact on all of these people.
Absolutely. And that's the biggest thing, and that's what drove me to keep going on my Facebook page after all the screening stopped, was because when we see something inspirational and positive and motivating, we feel great, and we walk away from it going, yeah, I'm going to do that, and I can be part of that, and I can take that message. But if we don't work on it and take that inspiration and go forward with it, nothing changes, and in the end it just becomes that, well, that was a nice film, but I didn't change. I don't love my body. And I think that's what was really important to me, was to keep that inspiration going for people, that after they've seen the film and heard Taran's message, that they then go and work on their body and work on their mind, work on how they feel about themselves, so that they don't just go, well, that was a nice film, but they can actually go, that film changed my life, and this is what I did because of that film.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I want people to keep being inspired by what I'm doing and motivate them to take action on their own journey.
But I think as well it's important to say that doing all of this work and watching the movie and everything, it's not necessarily going to make you love your body, because I think it's a mindset where you switch from trying to love your body to not even seeing your body. You just like living your life in your body, if that makes sense. Your body is functional for you. It gets you from A to B. It lifts heavy things in the gym or whatever it is you want to do with it, rather than looking at it from the outside all the time. And therefore you're never happy with it because you're always comparing to somebody else.
That's exactly right. And that's one of the biggest evils that we have, is that we compare ourselves to other people. And that's definitely something that I know I did in the past, is that, I would compare myself to these little petite framed girls that were like a foot shorter than me and didn't have the broad shoulders, and yet I would think, oh, if I diet and lose weight, I will look like them, rather than recognising that they're in a different vehicle to the vehicle that I'm living in. And we do forget that we need to stop looking from the inside and start looking from the inside and not focus from the outside in. And I completely agree with what you're saying there, is that we forget what our bodies can do. And, even though I've struggled with my arms and I'm still learning to wear sleeveless shirts, what I love about my arms is that when I get to see my family, I can wrap my arms around them. And that is the most amazing embrace possible to have.
Is there anything else that you want to leave us with?
I just think that if you get the opportunity, make sure you go see Embrace, because it will change your life, just like it's changed mine. And that when you do see it, don't just walk away and go, that was great, I feel awesome, but take that energy and go work on it and drive it forward so that you can feel fantastic for the rest of your life.
And if they want help feeling fantastic and follow all of your videos, do you want to share with us all your social media handles so they can follow you?
Yeah, sure. So my Facebook page is called I Buy a Dragonfly, and I also go by the same name on Instagram. And I'm also in the process of building my website, which will be ispyadragonfly.com. And they're the two social medias that I'm on. I just focus on the two. I find Twitter and Snapchat too confusing. I'm too old.
I'm actually getting into Snapchat now, and it's getting a little bit addictive.
Oh, I might have to find you and see what it's all about then.
If you like this episode, don't forget to subscribe and leave Nicola a review on iTunes. You can also check out the show notes and get other free content on her website, FeustelFIT.co.uk. If you'd like to contact Nicola, email nicola@FeustelFIT.co.uk.